Hello, this is my new book, The Roadmap, Escaping the Maze of Madness. I've been on this journey of uncovering and discovery now for getting on for 36 years. I think this is about the best thing I've ever done in my life. And it's now available for pre-order. The roadmap is to pull together all the different strands, everything from politics and finance to the afterlife and what that is, and how this reality is actually a multidimensional trap, to connect the dots of how ultimately the global conspiracy heading towards ever faster global dystopia is orchestrated from another dimension of reality. What's doing it, why, and how the hierarchy works right down into the occult rituals where they interact with this other dimension of reality. And I've seen, especially since COVID, but it was starting before then, how people have awoken to the fact in vastly larger numbers that there is some kind of conspiracy and it's not good for humanity, and it's based on the constant centralization of power towards this global dystopia. But I see people seeing the conspiracy being of the left. Others see the conspiracy of being of the right. Others say it's a conspiracy to enslave us through Islam, or some say Israel. And I've been researching this. I'm coming up to my 36th year. And I've worked on the basis of whatever I know or think I know, there's always more to know. I've never stopped and said, I got it. Because once you think you've got it, in the situation that we face, with the whole system trying to stop us getting it, once you think you've got it in those circumstances, well, you're just confirming you haven't. So the roadmap, Escaping the Maze of Madness, which is what it is to pull together all the strands, all the elements that I've got to up to this point. There will be more. And showing how it fits together, and how, if we focus on Trump and Starmer and all these people, we should know what they're doing. We should expose what they're doing. But if we don't see the big picture in which that is happening, we'll never find an answer to it, because escaping the maze of madness, how do we do that? Well, funnily enough, the more we understand the size of the conspiracy, the more we find the answers to the conspiracy. So that's the roadmap. We've reached a point now on this unfolding sequence of ever more extreme and profound human control, where we are looking in the face of the complete deletion of human freedom through a digital AI fusion, and an AI fusion with the human brain, that will mean the end of freedom as we have ever known it, the end of freedom to the point where AI will be deciding what you think, deciding what you feel. And thus, if AI is the means of human control, is that AI going to ask questions like, who am I? Where am I? What's going on? What is this place? None of these big questions will ever be asked because AI connected to the human brain will not be asking them. It's the ultimate control, not just of speech, but of thought itself. And so the timing of the roadmap is at this enormous cusp, this crossroads, this fork in the road, whatever analogy you want to use, where we now, not tomorrow, not a week on Tuesday, now have to decide which way we want to go. To stay in our little individual belief systems, our political belief systems, our religious belief systems, perceptual belief systems in general, and to defend them till our knuckles turn white from any other information, or to go, I'm going to open my mind when I open the cover, and I'm at least going to keep it open until the end. I'm going to give a totally different explanation of the human plight, human, quote, history, and the reality that we are experiencing. I'm going to give another explanation a chance to make its case. And a lot of people are going to read this book, The Roadmap, and go, I never knew. I'd never thought about this before. And it's going to open a lot of minds. While other minds go, choop! Load of rubbish. He's mad. He's crazy. It doesn't matter. It's information. What people make of it is up to them, not me. When I was writing the roadmap, I was writing it for everyone. All 8+ billion we're supposed to have on the planet, or in this reality we call Earth. Because this is the ultimate information. It affects every man, woman, child, everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, doesn't matter what your religion is, even what your political belief is. It's about the reality we're experiencing, which is nothing like we think we're experiencing. And it's about how that reality is a systematic, coldly calculated trap to enslave humans, ongoing. And so it's for everybody. But I also had in mind those people who, particularly since COVID, have opened their minds to conspiracies and nonsense, to hold on a minute, it looks like there's something in it. The people who've opened their minds to it's the left or it's the right or it's the Muslims or it's the Jews or it's the whatever. Because if we're going to understand what we're facing and how these apparently different elements are all in the end controlled by the same force, the same hand, and they're just played off against each other to divide and rule the target population. So we're divided and they rule. A part of the focus of this book is to say to those people, look, you may have this belief or that belief, you may have that belief, but actually it's all the same conspiracy. It's all the same force manipulating all of you to keep you fighting for your belief system or your religion or whatever. While that force that works through all of them, created them ultimately, goes on leading us like a carrot in front of the donkey to a dystopia the like of which has never been known in known human history, because it is the takeover, the hijacking of thought itself through a fusion of AI and humans. And this is not sometime, never, not sometime over the rainbow. It's not when there's an R in the month. We're heading towards it so fast. This is what digital ID is about. This is what the digital currency is about. This is what the fusion of humans and AI is really about. And if we're going to win a game, then it does help if we understand the rules and we understand how the game is played against us and who's playing it. When you work on the premise that whatever you know, there's always more to know, then the discovery and the if you like, the seeking to discover never ends. You don't open your mind to the fact that there's some kind of conspiracy, but Trump's the savior, and stop. You keep going. You don't open your mind to some religion or some belief of any kind and stop and say, okay, I got it now. You keep going. You keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Always knowing that whatever you know, there's more to know, there's more to know, there's more to know. And so my books have been a progression of this knowledge. Different books focus and specialize in different areas, but they're a progression. And the roadmap is the bringing together of 36 years of full-time research, which has taken me to, 60 odd countries. And in every book, every time I write a book, when I start, I have a certain level of knowledge, if you like, and then the synchronicity starts as I'm writing it. and delivers more and more knowledge. So every one is a progression. And I look at my books and I think for the time it's coming out, in conjunction with what it says, how it pulls things together, and in many ways what it focuses upon in different points in the book, I think it's the most important book I've ever written. Well, people who are reading my work for the first time, reading the roadmap, they're in for a bit of a shock, in the sense that the dots that I connect are not just dots across the breadth of human society and secret societies, what I call the global cult, this global network of secret societies that are behind the direction of human society to greater dystopia. Well, ultimate dystopia in the end, the plan. It goes across dimensions. It talks about who is this global cult and these cultists and initiates, many of them very rich and very famous in politics and corporations and Silicon Valley, etc. But they'll see who they're actually serving. You see, this has not started 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, even 1,000 years ago. This goes way, way, way back into what we call history. A lot more to know about that as well. And so when I kind of realized that, long time ago, back in the 1990s, you asked the simple question: what is the unifying, orchestrating force that spans that entire period? Because people, therefore, have been born, they've played a part in this cult to advance the agenda to ever greater, with each generation following generation of centralization of power. And then they've died, and other people have replaced them, and so on and so forth as it's gone on right the way through what we call history. The period of Babylon and ancient Egypt and ancient Rome, right up into today's society. So the question, obviously, that I would ask is, what's the force that's been there all along that's orchestrated all this? And to do that, you go into another dimension of reality. One very close to this one, which is a tiny band of frequency. That's what the human world is. But it's another dimension beyond the ability of human sight to access, decode, in other words. And you realize, as the dots connect, and everything in the end connects into it, which is, people will see that with the roadmap. You see that when these rich and famous global cult initiates in politics and corporations and Silicon Valley, on and on and on, when they're taking part in satanic ritual, they're doing nothing more than what the ancients did way back, what we call way back. And so, hold on, the ancients were sacrificing people in rituals, we would call them satanic rituals today, as a gift to the gods. Really? And in the early 1990s, when I was uncovering this global cult, I realized that its major players were doing satanic rituals and sacrifice rituals to their gods. Of course, then the penny drops. The gods of the ancients and the gods of the modern world, if you like, are the same bloody gods operating from another dimension of reality. It's been the same all along. Society may have changed, but the basic structure of human control has not. And so just saying one or two little headlines like that, not so little actually, and there's vastly more in the book that brings it all together, people might realize and see that what they'll read in this book is a version of human life, a version of reality, a version of the true nature of the I, which is not the body, it's consciousness. That if you come in across it for the first time, will blow your bloody mind. But we are in a situation where unless closed minds, believing in the programmed belief systems we're given from cradle to grave, are not frickin' blown open, then we're up the Swanee without one of them. But if we can open to the vastness of the conspiracy, we will open, as the book explains, to the vastness of the answers. One of the funny things, I think I would find it funny, I think I have really, largely, of my life in the last 36 years has been to attract abuse and ridicule from all, quote, sides. From the left, from the right, from the center, all political shades, orthodox science, another religion, all the different religions, what my father used to call the bricks and mortar religions, all have had the same reaction to my work, pretty much. But that's good, and it's understandable. Because what I do in the roadmap is challenge the rigid belief systems of all religions. And, you know, religion, people immediately, understandably, they get a picture immediately. You say religion, they see a church, they see a synagogue, they see a mosque, a temple. People. But religion is a mentality. And that religion mentality plays out right across human society, even among those that call themselves atheists, because that too is a form of religion. It's a form of rigid, unquestioned belief. What is orthodox science? It's a religion. That's why orthodox science throughout scientific history has had to be pulled, kicking and bloody screaming, into the next stage of understanding, if that level of understanding is at odds with their orthodoxy. Because their orthodoxy, their books of scientific orthodoxy, they're their holy books. And their temples and churches are universities, colleges, laboratories. And what is human-caused climate change? It's a belief. It's a religion. Look at it. And like all religions, it's designed to become a prison of the mind. Once you take on a rigid, unyielding belief, you will not go beyond the walls of the belief, because if you do, you're not your belief anymore. You start asking questions, my goodness me, I do in the book, big time, about Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, all of them. And suddenly, you're not a Christian, you're not a Muslim, you're not a this, you're not a that. Oh, no, sorry, I am. I'm sorry, I'll stop questioning. Here I am. I'm back in the belief, I'm back in the fold. Well, and by the way, what I've just described is what happens if you are a scientist and you step out of the orthodoxy. Exactly the same, because it's a religion. What happens if you're one of the human-caused climate changers and you stop and you're within a group and you go, Do you think that maybe we should be asking more questions? I mean, some of the things these people that are saying it's human-caused climate change, it's not real, they might have a point, at least here and there. What do you think? Ooh, you're a blasphemer. That's how it works. And so what you have is all these rigid belief systems which think that they're at odds with other belief systems, and in rhetoric and detail they may be, but they're all the same mentality. And what I've been doing for the last 36 years is saying, hey, I'm going to let information and evidence be my guide, not preconceived idea and preconceived unyielding belief. And when you do that, we call it an open mind. You go, whoa, the world looks so different now. Yeah, because you've taken the bloody blinkers of belief off. And so why wouldn't I unite all these rigid beliefs that in other ways are at war with each other in condemnation of me, dismissal of me? Of course I would. Why wouldn't I? That was the idea. And, well, the roadmap is going to cook their noodle. Humans are controlled, if you break it down to its foundation, they are controlled by their perception. So, why do we behave as we do in all the different forms you see? Because we perceive as we do. Behavior comes from perception. Someone has this perception, someone has that perception. They behave differently. well, in detail, if not foundation. And so, if you're a few, my God, it is a few compared with the global population, and you want to control the many, the one thing you must do, because there's not enough of you, you take the people in full knowledge who are driving this global cult dystopia on behalf of their other dimensional masters. You add to them all the people in uniform in law enforcement and military. You add all the government administrators that carry out the will of the few, on, and you're still collectively looking at a fraction of the global population. You can control people through law enforcement, military, whatever, in a certain area, but you can't do it globally if the population says, we're not cooperating. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. The few have no power when the many says or say, up yours, darling, not doing it. So what you have to do to overcome that is to control the perceptions of the population. Now, you don't want everyone believing absolutely everything the same until you've got an AI control connection, and then you can do that. Why they want to do it. But in the meantime, you want people to have different beliefs, different perceptions, because then you can play them off against each other in divide and rule. But overwhelmingly, you want them within certain tram lines of perceptual belief, what I call the postage stamp consensus, tiny. And then, if you've got control of their perception, you've got control of their behavior, you got them. And this is what censorship is about. It's about censoring information. Take COVID, classic. Censoring information that would give people a different way of looking at a situation or the world, and make sure that people overwhelmingly never hear it. I'm still being stopped in the street by people thanking me for exposing the COVID hoax and the fake vaccine, because it stopped them having it, and now they realize the consequences of having it for so many people that they know and read about. Why did they censor information across the internet that was exposing the fake jab and exposing the fake COVID, the hoax? Because then they would have control of the information that people received. They would have control of their behavior. Oh, I better get the jab because it's a deadly virus. So, what I've been doing all these bloody years is communicating information that the system doesn't want you to know, because it has the potential, big time, of allowing people to see there are other ways of explaining the world that make far more sense than the ones we are being officially given. And there will be, I would say, enormous numbers of people who read this book, the roadmap and will never, ever be the same again, because their perception of self, self-identity, reality, the world, will be transformed by the information they'll be reading. And you know, one of the greatest forms of mind control is control of the sense of the possible. So we have two worlds in one world. There's the world of the global cult, as I call it, this network of global secret societies with an interlocking mission control leadership. And passed on through that, through the inner circles of that cult, is of course, the agenda for humanity to ever greater dystopia, but also the nature of reality itself. In other words, what's really possible. What's really possible on many levels, not least technologically possible. Now, this global cult, its inner circle, has created the means of communication for the population it's targeting. It's behind what we call the education system, which is nothing more than a programming system, like the Rockefellers in America behind the American, quote, education programming system. And a Rockefeller gopher, Bill Gates, is very much involved in that to this day. They own the global media. They have moved in and targeted and hijacked great chunks of the promoted level, algorithmically promoted level of the alternative media. So you've got the same group that has passed on advanced information and hoards it, that has also created the means of communication among the general population, its target population, to make sure they stay in ignorance of what they know. And what I've been doing for 36 years now is uncovering what they know and passing it to people and saying, this is reality. This is how they're manipulating reality. This is how they're manipulating you to the end that this has long pursued. And it's funny because if you can control the sense of the possible of the population, when people like me come along and say, actually, this is what they're doing, and this is how, vast numbers of the population, with their coldly calculated limitation of sense of the possible, they go, you're mad, you are, that's not possible. Oh, it is, and they know it. What do they know? The roadmap, escaping the maze of madness.